lights in the sky, glowing golden orbs, things like that. A lot of the time they're seeing these things. This is an Air Force anti-infrared flare. It provides a heat source to decoy heat-seeking missiles. And they look very strange to people on the ground because they seem to hang in the air or move in strange ways with the air currents while glowing and sputtering. The deserts are littered with thousands of these things. These account for a lot of the unusual light sightings in the night sky over Nevada.
But Las Vegas's finest don't buy that explanation of what they've seen. They think it doesn't fit.
It moved. That light moved.
It's blinking right now.
Right there.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah, it's on and just faded out. You know, there's a lot of military aircraft up there right now. They're doing the exercises and they're dropping flares.
But don't flares fall down? That one did look like it fell, but it was, flares float down. That's the nature of flares, is so it illuminates an area. They float like this. That shot down to the ground at like light speed.
I have no idea what that was.
Did it again.
Look at that light, how it moves.
It's coming back. I'm gonna rewind it right here. It's right here. I am freaking out. Nothing moves like that.
That's strange.
So it's sort of half imagination. What the hell was that? Was that a bomb?
Probably.
You sure?
Yes, I think they're targeting your car, your vehicle.
That's not funny, dude.
The experienced UFO hunters are stumped. They've spotted an unidentified flying object over Area 51. But people like John Lear aren't surprised by sightings like these. They maintain there's a simple explanation.
There is nothing that we have developed that hasn't been influenced by ET. They've given us everything. From Roswell, we developed such things as transistors, fiber optics, and things like that.
Have the UFO hunters seen one of the reversed engineered UFOs Bob Lazar talked about in the late 1980s? In the Spring Mountains, 65 kilometers west of Vegas, Peter Merlin's on a mission to find out.
We're looking for the remains of a top-secret project capable of flying at speeds of over 2,000 miles per hour and up to 90,000 feet altitude. It was a CIA project tested at Area 51.
The question is, was this project based around UFO technology?
They looked like craft from other worlds, so one could be forgiven for thinking, wow, that's a UFO. Because if you've never seen something like that, then it most definitely is an unidentified flying object.
Now there's a chance to discover the truth. In 1967, one of these ultra-secret prototypes crashed here in the Spring Mountains.
Conventional wisdom would be that these sites would be completely cleaned up. I've talked to people who worked on the cleanup crews, and almost universally, they told me, don't even bother looking because the government cleaned up every trace. But when I go to these sites, I find that there's always something left. In fact, it's a pretty decent-sized piece of titanium. Yeah, there's a little bit of black paint on the outer surface. The airplane was painted black. This is part of a radar-absorbent structure, so this would have been one of the most secret components of the airplane. So it seems like it would be surprising to find pieces of it out here after they cleaned it up, but yet the desert is littered with it.
Peter Merlin has found pieces of the most sensitive military secret of the 20th century. It's not alien, but to the Soviets at the height of the Cold War, it might well have been. It's a technology so advanced that they never saw it coming. Literally. America's stealth aircraft, introduced in the 1980s, changed the rules of aerial warfare. Exotic in looks and performance, these ultra-modern aircraft caused a flood of UFO reports over the Nevada desert. But stealth aircraft can't possibly be responsible for all UFO sightings worldwide. What strange craft triggered the others? Now, with modern technology, it may be possible to figure out what they are and where they come from. In today's world of high-tech gadgetry, machines that perform the simplest of functions can often be mistaken for UFOs. This is an aerobot. It's been designed by Paul Moller, the man who built and flew the M200X flying saucer.
Well, the aerobot I'm flying here is a vehicle that was designed for bridge inspection. It's a serious problem. How do you get up and inspect bridges or not risking somebody's life in the process of identifying cracks in the bridges?
The US Air Force has used these experimental machines for aerial surveying tasks. It's an unfamiliar technology. These are exactly the types of objects that draw public attention and could be mistaken for UFOs.
It's amazing. A lot of times we do not announce a flight of any of the things we're doing, but 5 o'clock in the morning, we started up and there's a crowd already here. It's almost like there's some magical communication out there. Everybody wants to see it fly. It's going to be surprising, but you know everything's surprising to start with, right? It's a matter of time. It wouldn't take very long before it'd be common like everything else in our lives.
To the untrained or uneducated eye, Paul Moller's gizmos could appear to be unidentified flying objects. But figuring out what it is that people really see in the sky when they report a UFO is the job of this man. Mark D'Antonio is a chief analyst with Mutual UFO Network, an organization which investigates unexplained sightings.
When someone sees something, there's a variety of ways in which they can record it. This cell phone video showed up on the web, and just since late last night, it's already had 187 views. This is basically available for the world to see.
It's the UFO recorded over Winsted, Connecticut. Mark's job is to analyze the footage and try to identify what it is. In the majority of cases, what he discovers surprises people.
As anyone can imagine with UFO imagery and video, we're going to get a lot of images of things that are actually flying. You have aircraft, insects, birds, occasional rock, or other things flying through the air. And we see a lot of those photos. You know, we'll see frisbees photographed at odd angles. I mean, things like that. For example, take a look at this one.
On his database, he's got hundreds of examples of typical UFO shots.
Somebody took a picture of an aircraft, but it's a known object. Obviously, it's an aircraft, and that's not a problem. But you see this shape in here. You see this streak right here, and then you see two appendages. One set here, one set there. Okay, this is classic because this is a very out of focus object very close to the camera. This is an insect.
It's a common example of how a UFO can be captured on film, but never actually seen. Sometimes these objects aren't even flying at all.
Many times people photograph things genuinely because they need them for work or whatever, but then later when they review the pictures, they see something odd because they didn't see it when the photo was taken. In this particular case, over here in the corner, these two objects showed up, and they were submitted as two objects that were not seen when the photo was taken. I looked at that and I started laughing. I said, you know, this makes my day. Because what that is is just a staple.
95% of all the UFO material sent into Mark for analysis turns out to be known objects, simply misidentified or captured in an unusual way.
The UFOs typically become IFOs, identified flying objects, and they turn out to be planes and helicopters and atmospheric phenomena and celestial bodies like meteors and all kinds of things.
But what about the sightings that can't be categorized so easily?
All the other imagery that we've looked at so far have been in that 95% known category that we've talked about before, you know, aircraft, insects, flares. In this particular case, this is a true UFO. This is an unidentified flying object. It's a true unknown. It's one of those that has been subjected to all the analysis already by far more than just me. True unknown.
Most of what we're talking about is some very small percent of unidentifieds. It's this small residue that everybody is really fighting over. And of course, if the believers are right, if even one of those is really, really, really real, then extraterrestrial craft are real.
It's a view that's dogged the UFO community from the beginning.
Something flying in the sky that is unidentified and is an object isn't by definition an alien spaceship. There's no reason why in 2011, if somebody sees a circular craft in the sky, that has to be built by aliens.
And here's proof. Winsted, Connecticut. Spectators in a dimly lit car park spot a strange object in the sky over a Stop and Shop mall. It creates a stir. The sighting is recorded on camera phones and is posted up on the internet within hours. It's been spotted where there are no reports of any air traffic. There are no blimps or advertising craft in the vicinity. To all present, it's an unidentified flying object.
Unbelievable. The problem is as the technology advances, it becomes easier and easier to hoax things that look really good. Whereas, say, 30, 40 years ago, a good UFO photograph may actually have been a real UFO photograph because it was hard to fake. Today, you know, a really good UFO could be some spotty 16-year-old teenager in his mum's spare bedroom putting together a piece of footage, putting it on the internet and laughing at all these wide-eyed UFO researchers.
Okay, coming in.
This UFO is a hoax.
Good.
Connecticut's latest flying saucer sighting started life in a basement workshop a little over 24 hours before.
Okay, lights. Good, there we go. One there.
It's an experiment thought up for this investigation by MUFON analyst Mark D'Antonio.
There's so much available off-the-shelf technology that allows you to put together a craft in no time at all that people can mistake, misidentify. It makes our job very difficult in trying to discern what's real, what's not, because the unknowns are out there, and that's what we're after.
But this isn't a case of the gamekeeper turning poacher. Mark D'Antonio is on a mission.
It's this guy. I think it's really critical that people understand what types of things they are seeing in the sky, whether it's a meteor or it's a four-bladed quadcopter with lights. There's thousands of these out there now. Thousands. We have to show people what these are, because too many people are reporting these and then think they've had a life-changing event, when in fact they were looking at someone fooling them. We want to raise that public awareness. That's very important. And we want to expose the hoaxers for who they are and show with this how that works.
pretty neat.
All right, here we go. Okay.
The Winstead UFO sighting has been explained. It's one of the 95% that are. But what about the 5% that remain unidentified? Doug Wilson is at the sharp end of UFO sightings. He's a field operative for MUFON.
With 30 years of experience as an investigator, I can usually tell within a few minutes of an interview what the chances are that I'm looking at a planet, an aircraft, or what have you, regardless of how adamant the witness might say this was not an airplane. Do we have a case where you can honestly say I've exhausted everything and yet I don't know what it was? It happens.
In such cases, Doug knows why a lot of people instinctively make the link to outer space.
I think people do feel the need to have an explanation for everything. We've got Star Wars, Star Trek, any number of science fiction that people look at and they think automatically outside of the Earth. And so if you don't give them an answer, they will come up with one on their own, and frequently it is extraterrestrial.
Blockbuster movies and hit TV shows may have kept our appetite for UFOs alive, but it's been the lack of disclosure and sightings that defy explanation that really fuel our search for answers. An incident 60 years ago gave a town in New Mexico a marketing dream, and gave birth to an industry that cashes in on man's fascination for the unknown. But the truth is, the facts behind the Roswell incident have been released.
I think the best explanation for the entire Roswell incident was it was a physics experiment that got lost, and that led to some unintended consequences.
Today, the official explanation for Roswell is the crash of a top-secret listening device codenamed Project Mogul.
These balloon trains were huge assemblies. We've got a picture of one right here. It was 600 feet tall. It was about half the height of the Eiffel Tower.
Unlike those who maintain a flying saucer crashed, physicist David Thomas has evidence that supports the official version of events.
This is a small replica of the I-beam that was found in the Roswell debris.
These strange markings are the key to unlocking the UFO mystery. It's not alien writing, as some believe. It's something much more down to earth. And crucially, it links it to Project Mogul.
They were made for the Army Signal Corps by a toy company in Manhattan called Merrick Manufacturing. And the reflectors were a little flimsy, and when the Army Air Force said, can you make them stronger, they applied some tape they had sitting around the toy factory, and this tape had these strange, colorful, sort of hieroglyphic symbols that could have been interpreted as alien writing.
It's exactly the same design described by eyewitnesses. But instead of being alien writing, the truth is, it's toy wrapping tape. Despite the evidence, it isn't enough for some people. 60 years of speculation can't be swept away so easily.
No one's going to hide a weather balloon coming down. There's no point. And even a mogul balloon, there are examples of mogul balloons coming down elsewhere in the US in the summer of '47. They weren't subject to stringent security like the Roswell event was. So I think for me that rules out a mogul balloon.
The real truth behind the most famous UFO of all time may never be universally accepted. But the facts reveal that in the vast majority of cases, an explanation for most UFOs can be found. Simple misidentification, atmospheric conditions, hot air balloons, hoaxes, even staples can all become unidentified flying objects. But the question remains, what are those that stay unidentified?
There are those people who understand that while there are a lot of mystery lights and things happening in the sky, some of them of a perhaps clandestine nature, there's no good evidence that any extraterrestrial craft is visiting the planet Earth.
Believers will still hunt for the evidence.
Light speed.
That one, the last one,
It's right here.
in my opinion, the truth behind UFOs is that, first of all, they're real. They're here. Roswell, New Mexico. Something did crash, and I do believe that it was a alien spacecraft.
But for those of us who just look to the skies and wonder,
80 to 90% of all UFO sightings are explainable. But as a rational person trying to keep an open mind, I would have to say that there is no reason to believe that aliens could not be here. It's kind of like people's belief in God. You can't prove it, but you'll be damned if you'll deny it in total.